Good morning. This is The Platform. My name is Sam Omashe. A lot has happened in the past week that have kept Nigerians talking. And I'm here to also talk about these issues. But earlier in the week, my article titled "For Justice" was published in the Nation newspaper. Here is what it is about. We should ponder the paradox. Magu is fighting thieves. He takes them to court but loses. Lawyers smile home with their fees and judges get their pay. The people do not get their due though. Why? Because when whistleblowers scream, stolen money erupts from hidden places. The eruption of loot in private places juxtaposes with the sons and justices who give victory to the defense. This shows us, as I indicated last week, that law has failed us in Nigeria. The courts say the thieves can go free. We can go to hell. What then is the purpose of the law? They claim the cases were not properly presented. It's an excuse to canonize criminals. If the society as a whole owes itself the task to battle sleaze, the onus lies on the court, lawyers, and judges to bring it to fruition. There lies the value of the lawyers. Yet, it is the same lawyers who fail to make the case and the judges who fail to give the right verdict. So, is it the law that we should blame? Well, a little bit. Our laws pretend to be rooted in our culture, but it is an import from Europe and the United States. Nothing wrong with that. But we have failed to adapt them to our peculiar social context. In Europe and the US, the same constitution that compelled the society to burn blacks at the stake was also used to enfranchise them in the flush of the civil rights movement. The society must allow itself, its values, to determine the law. The society rose against racial injustice, and the eyes of judges were opened to the law that espouses equality. It was always there in the US law that all men are created equal, unquote. Behind every big case of fraud is a son, as a senior advocate of Nigeria. And behind any judgment that liberates a thief is a judge with a callow mind. Shakespeare's Henry VI character, Dicky the Butcher, said, "The first thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers," unquote. He meant it in jest, but the quote has endured through the ages because of the intellectual duplicity of Whigs. If the lawyer is making an imperfect case, a good judge will do the right thing and save the case. That is when the rule of law makes sense. But our justices are lost because they love themselves and their money more and society less. We want lawyers and judges that love our society more. Well, that is from the Nation newspaper's column of last Monday, and you can see that you go to the website, thenationonlineng.com. Now this is this new segment. The presidency has wielded the big stick. This time the president's men are the victims. Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Babachir Lawal, David, and the Director General of the National Intelligence Agency, Ayoke, are currently under the spotlight for the wrong reasons. Babachir Lawal has damaged or has managed to thrive in controversy and corruption allegations. He was indicted by a Senate ad hoc committee report over the handling of funds for the presidential initiative on the Northeast. Senator Shehu Sani had accused the presidency of using insecticide when it comes to fighting corruption in the National Assembly and judiciary, while using deodorant when it comes to fighting corruption at the executive arm. Is the Babachir Lawal suspension long overdue? This is what I think. The president has been too slow on this matter. This man was accused of using his position to give a contract to himself. And then, even then, they complained that the money was not used to help all those people in the IDPs who have no money to eat, where they were dying in droves and suffering in the aftermath of the Boko Haram conflict. And the matter has been pending for close to a year. The president had made the Senate or the National Assembly clean, and he has already vindicated his enemies. That is why you should take your position and take it in time. Well, the issue is now under investigation. Babachir Lawal is now out of sight for a while. We want to see how well and how thorough this investigation will be. I trust the Vice President will do a thorough job, and I hope that the report is not tossed aside. What has happened to Babachir David is not what I think it should be. That is, just picking a scapegoat and then letting things go. There have been other allegations of inequities leveled against this government in its fight against corruption, making it look as if the president is only interested in safeguarding the people who are close to him and fighting people who are outside. Now, this is one signal case of the war on corruption seeming, I use the word seeming, to go after those people even within the house. There are other allegations that are out there. So we need not only action, but swift and executive action. Then the second one, for the Director General of the National Intelligence Agency, Ayoke, the Ikoyi cash discovery and recovery will haunt him for a very long time. The huge sums of money stashed in dollars, pounds, and naira have been linked to the NIA, but more intrigues continue to unravel as investigations deepen. In 2 weeks, we expect the report of the investigative panel set up by President Buhari and headed by his deputy, Yemi Osinbajo. Well, the good thing is that the money has been repatriated to the central bank, where it belongs. Buhari has done the right thing. So money is erupting from everywhere in the country. We need to account for all of this. One thing it has exposed is that this thing happened in the Jonathan time. And it means that where that money came from, they probably is more. We want to know who are the people behind it, who authorized it, how was it authorized, why did they keep it there, how long has it been there, how has it been there, was it always $43 million? Was it up to 100, or have they been taking some and exchanging some to naira and cutting them away? We need thorough investigation into all of this. And until that is done, no justice has been done to our money. The Kaduna State Governor, Nasir El-Rufai, has failed to stop the senseless killings of indigents in southern Kaduna by suspected armed Fulani herdsmen. Jamar local government again suffered losses. The governor also launched Operation Harbin Kunama 2 that will help the army deal with the armed persons responsible for the attacks in southern Kaduna. But these killings are incessant despite the huge presence of security forces deployed to counter the violence. So what I think about the Southern Kaduna thing, now a hotbed for killings of people, is that it all looks like a joke. You have a state of emergency in just Southern Kaduna, not all of Nigeria, not even all of Kaduna State. And violence continues to happen. And not one person has been caught and paraded. The governor did not help the case when he said there are people coming from outside the country and they use Nigeria's money by playing foreign affairs minister to go and bribe them to stop. Well, he has gone to bribe them and the thing has not stopped. So what will he say now? Will he still say it's the foreign people? So something has to be done about that. They have to be serious. The federal government has to be serious about the lives of innocent people who are dying in southern Kaduna. It is unacceptable. It is the truth by the Emir of Kano, Muhammadu Sanusi II, too bitter a pill for the northern elites to swallow. Hate him or love him, the Emir can be really blunt. This time, His offense is that he called the North poorest part of the country and advocated for the education of the girl child. Emir Sanusi alleges that there is already a growing conspiracy among the northern elite to silence him. I also have my opinion on the rift between the Kano monarch and the northern political class. There was just a report, an international report, agency report, that said that Nigeria ranks number 152 in the Human Development Index. If you look at it properly, Nigeria must have ranked better if the North had taken care of some of the most important issues of development like education, the girl child education, which some governors are actually handling now, like Sokoto, Borno, and a few others, which are really they are taking seriously. But even the Sultan has been talking about ringing the bell about girl child education. So many young men and women are not educated, and that is why you have the preponderance of religious-based violence in the North, because these people have not gone to school, and people who want to use them as tools can just click their fingers, and these people will just emerge because they have nothing to do. You feed them, you clothe them, you give them wives, and therefore you own them. That's the northern elite. So free these people, give them education, make the place develop. And when you do that, you also free the people. And people like Lamido Sanusi will not be making noise anymore. So the problem is not Lamido Sanusi. They should look themselves in the mirror. If you ask the presidency what is the biggest achievement of President Buhari's government, they will certainly tell you that it is the fight against corruption. But this anti-corruption war reached another new level with the introduction of the whistleblower policy. Now the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission is always in the front line of busting cash believed to be illegally acquired and stashed in fortresses around the country. We even hear that the government is considering better ways of strengthening the whistleblower policy. This is what I think about the potency of the whistleblower policy. The whistleblower policy is a very good one, but it's one of the very rare occasions of civic cooperation in Nigeria. Some people may say there's greed to it, that if there is $43 million, at least you get some good percentage of that and your problem is over. So you whistle-blow yourself into prosperity and out of poverty. But that is also a reflection of a deeper pain in our society, that we have to be given incentives in order to tackle the ills among us. It is whistleblower policy taking advantage of the greed of a society in order to fight greed. That is the irony. Welcome back. In everything happening in the polity, there's certainly room for comic relief. Look at this sketch on the trending whistleblower policy. The people queuing for the whistle to become whistleblowers. And the second one is about the money, which is a spoof of what the president said at the beginning of his presidency. He said it's for everyone and it's for nobody. So that is what happens when you are for everybody and you are for nobody. The money is for everybody and it's for nobody. It's a spoof of the fact that nobody wants to claim or wanted to claim the money, or everybody also wants the money. So that was, those were two great cartoons, one from the Business Day and the other one from Daily Trust. Now, in the mirror, the whistleblower policy may be new in Nigeria. It has been a huge part in the American society. As far back as 1773, Benjamin Franklin exposed confidential letters that proved the governor of Massachusetts misled Parliament to promote a military build-up in the New World. The governor was dishonorably discharged and exiled. Between that period and now, blowing the whistle on a boss, government, or an institution has become a matter of doing what is right and standing for one's beliefs in the face of corruption. But for some, it is a get-rich scheme for instant money. For others, however, it's about safeguarding the Commonwealth and exposing infractions on no matter how little. And for that reason, Sharon Watkins of Enron, Colleen Rowley of the FBI, and Cynthia Cooper of WorldCom were recognized in 2002 by the Time magazine as their Persons of the Year. Watkins was Vice President of Corporate Development at Enron. She is considered by many to be the whistleblower who helped to uncover the Enron scandal in 2001. She alerted then CEO Ken Lay to accounting irregularities within the company, warning that Enron might implode in a wave of accounting scandals. Cooper is an American accountant who formerly served as the VP, as the Vice President of Internal Audit at WorldCom. She and her team of auditors worked together to investigate and unearth $3.8 billion in fraud at WorldCom, the largest incident of accounting fraud in U.S. history at the time. In 2002, Rowley of the FBI outlined the agency's slow response time to reports of suspicious activity before the 9/11 attacks. Most recently, a former banker, Bradley Birkenfeld, gave out his former banking bosses who had helped U.S. clients to hide money in Swiss accounts. The IRS paid him a $104 million for his efforts. The Whistleblower Protection Act was made into federal law in the United States in 1989. It was made to protect federal whistleblowers who work for the government and report agency misconduct. The Senate established July 30th, 2014 as the first National Whistleblower Appreciation Day. Here in Nigeria, whistleblowers are gradually becoming allies of anti-graft agencies, especially the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, as they seek to recover looted funds. But do we have the legislation to protect them? Are the whistleblowers particular about the fight against corruption or lining their pockets? For a bit of odd news, a chief of police in a northeast Oklahoma community issued himself a $300 ticket for speeding, but that was after he was caught on camera. Sperry Police Chief Justin Birch posted an apology on the department's Facebook page saying he was wrong in traveling at 75 or 80 miles per hour. He admits he is not sure he will have issued the ticket if not for the video, and that he had a reason for being in a hurry. But what is most important is his admission that he must be held accountable. Well, coming up in the program is the big talk. Earlier in the week, I sat with Barrister Femi Falana, a senior advocate of Nigeria and whom I refer to as the best lawyer of his generation, to discuss the war on corruption and some issues in the judiciary. What does it say of a lawyer who takes a case that has already been seen by the public as bad, and then you are a son, and then you take the case when people already know that you were caught with so amount of money, and then you as a lawyer you go there and defend it? Is that even good for the profession?
Sir, Section 36 of the Constitution provides that every person accused of a criminal offense is entitled to legal representation. Everybody. So if you are charged or you are accused of committing an offense, whether there is evidence to back it up or not, you are entitled to a lawyer. What the lawyer should not do, and that is where you may have a point. If your client confesses to you, if your client informs you that I did it, I committed the offense, you don't go to court to ask for unwarranted adjournments or to engage in dilatory tactics that would divert attention from the cause of justice. You are supposed to walk to the prosecutor and agree by way of plea bargain that my client says he did it, instead of wasting the time of the court and the resources of the state. Can we have him convicted with an understanding that the sentence will be reduced? That is what we learned in the law school. Unfortunately, that is not what obtains in practice. But that is not to say that lawyers who are honest and dedicated to the cause of justice should be lumped with those who are making a mockery of the justice system.
Magu and the presidency and the Senate. The presidency has said it's Magu or nobody. What is the implication?
No, I don't think that will be correct. I don't think the president, I do not understand the presidency to say that it's Magu or nobody. Because if the government says that, it's dangerous. Because anything can happen to Magu, like any human being, like any of us.
Well, as long as Magu is alive.
No, I think what the government has said is that the presidency is satisfied by his performance, and that we have now stumbled on Section 171 of the Constitution, which in fact provides that the president could appoint him without any confirmation by the Senate. So with that interpretation of the relevant constitutional provision, I think, with respect, whoever is dissatisfied will have to go to court. For now.
Well, the Senate has become, as it were, thrown into the lodge. It can't go to court.
No. In fact, by a 2011 amendment, the Senate or the executive, or the National Assembly or the executive, can approach the Supreme Court if there is a dispute, as in this case. And I think the last time when President Jonathan refused to assent to the constitutional amendment, that was in 2011, yes. And he saw that the National Assembly was going to go ahead. He approached the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, issued an injunction restraining the National Assembly from proceeding with the amendment because they were clearly, according to the president, illegal. Yeah.
So what that means for the future of the war on corruption, Magu and the presidency, what does that mean?
I think for me, there has to be an understanding. Again, this is my own problem with the ruling class here. We have to put personal interests aside and consider the interests of the people. We've wasted so much time on the appointment of Magu that serious laws, serious bills, like the Whistle Protection Bill, PACA, and many other bills are pending in the National Assembly that have to do with fighting corruption. I mean, assets are being seized, and the government says we are offering 5% or 2.5% to 5%. There's no law backing these policies. And for me, I think these are the areas that the National Assembly will want to look at. The monies that have been seized. What should the government do with the huge funds Are we just going to pay the money to the federation account and share it? And it will be a case of, what that's our experience in the past. You know, Olegba, a thief has
stolen it.
Found it, and another thief has stolen it. Yes. Which should be unfortunate for the country. So the National Assembly should help the Nigerian people to enact a law that will assist the government in managing the funds. We have graduate unemployment. Our hospitals have become, not just consulting clinics, as was said by military dictators in 1984. They've become mortuaries. Yes. Our roads are death traps. Can we channel these funds to alleviate and improve on our, decaying infrastructure, so that people can say funds that were recovered were judiciously spent. But if care is not taken, if you just pay it into the federation account, unfortunately, those funds will disappear. Because that's our experience with the Abacha loot and a lot of recoveries that have been made by the governments in the past. I'm aware this government has put all the recovered loot in the central bank. But we have to very quickly attend to urgent, pressing problems, in the country.
Well, many people say some of our elements of our legal system is rooted in our culture, but much of it is imported. But the Western legal system is based on well-calibrated set of values, so that when you go to the law, even when you pursue technicality, it's a technicality that is already agreed or known by the lawyers, that this is where the society stands. On stealing, this is where the society stands. On rape, this is where the society stands. On moving across the border, there are things like that that are settled in the minds of the people. In fact, when the revolution took place in the US, Benjamin Franklin said the revolution was in the hearts and minds of the people. So the law is just supposed to formalize what is already a value. But we are like a jungle, and we are bringing what is already formalized in another society, and we are bringing it here. How does that translate law into justice?
No, Sam, I think you are getting it wrong. As I did say, the bourgeois legal system is anchored on injustice, institutionalized. But the difference between us and the West is that whereas in an advanced capitalist society, the members of the ruling class are prepared to make scapegoats and sacrifice those who violate the law. In a neo-colonial environment, those who are in government, or those who are connected to the government, or those who are privileged in the society, try to be higher than the law. They manipulate the law to promote injustice. Whereas in the West, no matter how high you are, like the late Lord Dennis said, the law is higher than you. Here, big people, big men and women are higher than the law. That is the problem. You will even be surprised to know that some of the rules of procedure, anachronistic doctrines that the West has done away with, are very much at play here. Take local standing, for instance. The West felt that if we continue to say that, if we continue to allow the doctrine of local standing to stultify or discourage public interest litigation, there will be a breakdown of law and order. But here, even in a society where majority of the citizens are not aware of their right, and where those who are aware of their right are afraid to enforce their right, we still celebrate the doctrine of local standard. Oh, Mr. Falana, mind your own business. Why should you sue the government for not fixing the Lagos-Ibadan road? What is your business there? If people are dying on the street, why should you take the government to court by asking the local government to remove dead bodies on the highway? So that is part of the backwardness that we have to deal with, because we are dealing with a ruling class that does not know how to protect its own interests, that cannot even identify its own interests.
There has been a lot going on in the past week or so about money found here and there. And it's happening in the context of the EFCC losing a number of cases, as well as the DSS and the ICPC. What do you think is going on?
Well, I think it may not be fair to use the 4 cases lost in the last couple of weeks as a basis to measure the achievements of the EFCC in the prosecution of corruption cases. I have it on record. Now, in the last 1 year, the EFCC has secured about 200 convictions. Not just about Yahoo boys. Some of them have to do with politically exposed persons. For instance, the former governor of Adamawa State, a former Nimasa MD, about 4 local government chairmen in Kaduna and Kogi states, and quite a number of the big guys in the fuel importation scam. Yes. So, yes, I agree with you. And of the 4 cases, I think only 2 have been traced to the EFCC. One was by ICPC, which had to do with the intervention by the Office of the Attorney General to discontinue the case. The other one, again, emanated from the Office of the Attorney General. I mean, the prosecution of Gesa Demola and his wife and one of our colleagues. So, if you look at it totally, I don't think the EFCC has done very badly. But for me, the loss of those cases simply suggests that the government has to go back to the drawing table. I have given a legion of reasons why these cases have been lost.
Yes, you wrote an article that was published in The Nation last week about some of the problems there. I mean, problems about logistics, about funding and all of that. Those are there, but it seems that you are defending your own part of the deal, that's the lawyers and the... No. In all seriousness, I'm also very critical of my colleagues and the judiciary in particular. But we must not lose sight of where the problem is. Because once you accept the government excuse that this is a case of corruption fighting back, then you are missing the problem. I mean, you are not going to address the problem. In fact, for me, that is escapism. If the government had done its own part, I mean, in terms of thorough investigation, thorough prosecution, and judges now behave funny, then you may have a case against my colleagues, according to you. But from the facts on ground, if a government lawyer does not show up in court, if a government lawyer does not file a counter affidavit to a serious application, what do you expect the judge to do? No, nothing. Because the other lawyer is insisting that his case has to go on. If the Office of the Attorney General file a nolle prosequi under Section 174 of the Constitution, the hands of the judge are tied. He cannot say, I am not going to terminate the case. So these are the issues that we have to address. So instead of blaming judges and defense counsel, we should be challenging the state. Well, why have you not done your homework? Yeah. I mean, the former head of state, President Obasanjo, said, oh, they should go and look for Ogbologbo lawyers in the system. They are not in the system. You need to go out to look for Ogbologbo lawyers to confront the Ogbologbo lawyers assembled, means tough lawyers. Yes.
lawyers who know their onions, who can challenge their colleagues in court on equal level. But if you have a lawyer who is putting about 40 years or 50 years in the profession, mobilized by a politically exposed person,
with a lot of money,
of course, you get to pay. If you are going to have a good case defended, you got to pay your lawyer. Now the state has merely asked a lawyer who is less than 10 years at the bar to go and face the senior lawyer. I mean, the bourgeois legal system is about technicalities. It's about rules of procedure. And there's nothing you can do about that. It's part of the struggle against inequality in the system. But for now, unless the government is prepared to break the barrier of inequality, but once you are playing, you are buying in the same market of, ideas, you got to pay the best lawyers, as was the case when the FCC reached the apogee of its success.
No, but what you have said, therefore, is that the system is rigged in favor of the same thieves, because the same thieves who stole the billions are the same thieves that will pay the lawyers the billions. So the sons have become advocates of the rich.
No, Sam, in a bourgeois legal system, and there is no apology about it. That is what capitalism is all about. Under a bourgeois legal system, the lady of justice that is paraded as blind or blindfolded, that lead has been removed, and that lady has been raped by the rich. Now, there's nothing like equality before the law.
Are you supposed to surrender?
No, because you need to understand the philosophical basis of the bourgeois legal system. When you say a man was killed, for instance, if it's a poor man, you say he's been murdered. But if it's a big man, you say he's been assassinated. When a poor man goes on the street to walk, to enjoy this freedom of movement, you challenge, you arrest him for wandering. Yes. Even though the law against wandering was abolished in 1989. But the police, all over the place, yes, ordinary people, poor people are harassed. Right? Yes. But when a big man goes around, you say he's strolling or taking a walk. If he's obese, he's trying to shed weight. So you need to understand that there's nothing like equality before the law in a capitalist society. And it's worse in a neo-colonial environment. The West, for instance, has mechanisms for aiding the poor to access justice. They vote money, sufficient money yearly, to promote pro bono work by lawyers, to fund legal aid scheme. But here, it's only the rich, that can really access justice. So you are not going to blame lawyers for it. But we have a duty, right, to join in the movement to create equality in our society.
Thank you for being a part of the show today. Join me next week for another edition of the program. And until then, be good.